Good evening and welcome to week 6. Congratulations, you've completed your audit and that is awesome. You have identified what some of the areas are that you need to be looking to fix, to improve. And you do that by looking for best practices. You do not have to come up with totally original ideas. There's a lot of good stuff out there. So let's take a look at how you do that. The first thing that I want to cover is what the chapter requirements are. You need to have at least 3 best practices. And in those best practices, each section has, or each best practice has 2 sections: the description of the best practice, and then a case study or studies that show that somebody's actually used it and it actually works. And hopefully you can even find some quantitative or some good information on how well it works. That is the most compelling information that you can give to your stakeholders. So 3 best practices, 3 sections in your chapter. Each section has 2 parts: the best practice, description, and the case study. You must have a case study for every best practice. You must have a best practice for every case study. What are best practices? That's what we're going to cover first. Then we're going to take a look at the sources of best practices. We're going to look at doing a little brainstorming. And then if you have any questions, you can email me afterwards. Okay, so what are best practices? A best practice is measurable, replicable, and notably successful. So the first thing is you have to be able to measure it in some manner, shape, or form. It can't just be this squishy idea. Now, it can be a behavior change, or it can be something that might not be easy to measure, but it has to be measurable. It also has to be replicable. In other words, different organizations should be able to apply this same best practice and find some successful results. And finally, it needs to be notably successful. It needs to make a real difference. You are looking for the most effective products, processes, techniques, incentives, behaviors, or training. All of those things can be best practices. When you're searching for best practices, there are a couple of things that might help you out when you're looking for them. First is you might look at things that are going to maybe take a little bit of time to get done, but when they get done, they'll have more effect. So you might lengthen the decision time horizons. Take advantage of your stakeholders' creativity. Sometimes they've been wanting to do something for ages, or they knew there was something wrong, but didn't know quite what to do about it. And working with you, you can brainstorm with them and they can come up with some good things. You might also involve external stakeholders, either formally or informally. You can do something that shows that you are passionate, that your leadership is passionate about making these changes, not just doing something that is impersonal. And you can apply values-based criteria to your decisions. Not all of it is just dollar signs, although those are important. Believe me, your stakeholder will let you know that those are important. But there are other values that they have also. They love quality. They love the earth. They really do care about these things. So as long as you can come up with recommendations that are doable, then they will really like them if they are also aligned with their values. Where do we find best practices? A best practice I mentioned was repeatable. So you take someone who knows how to do it, and this repeatable process and reusable checklists or reusable tools, and that gives you a repeatable project success. Well, one of the first places that you can look is academic research. St. Petersburg College actually has a research guide, a LibGuide in the library for Capstone. They have one that's for general business, and there's a tab that's for sustainability. By the way, there's also something there for APA, although Purdue OWL does really good work. And it talks about some of the keywords that you can use when you're searching for best practices. And that's what this is over here. Over here, it also gives you a couple of the different databases that we have where you can find some best practices. There's Greenfile, there's Business Source Complete, and those are two of the main ones that you might want to take a look at. But I will tell you that a lot of times you can find just as good or better results by looking for on the internet. Here are some of the other options that you might take a look at. You can look at trade organizations for your particular industry. If you're looking at a waste audit and you are looking at packaging, there's a trade organization, there's sustainable packaging websites out there. You can look at, of course, government entities, the EPA, the Department of Energy, Energy Star Portfolio Manager, all of those, NREL, all of those government entities have got a lot of good information there. You can look at online sustainability journals. Environmental Leader, if you don't get that, that has a lot of case studies in it that you might take a look at. It comes out almost every day, and a lot of them are press releases, but they have them nicely categorized there for, energy, water, waste, all of those. And so you can take a look and see if they have some good examples, some good case studies. You can, of course, look at theory. Some of the theories websites, like Cradle to Cradle, have got a whole section on best practices and case studies. So take a look at those. You can just Google best practices for energy savings at resorts. One of the things that you might want to look at is if there's a PDF. I always check first if there's a PDF in the top the first page, first couple of pages. A lot of times those are white papers, which are essentially research papers that describe best practices and have case studies. You can look at respected authors. There's a lot of good material out there right now that authors have put out. Some of them are your textbooks, and take a look at those. You can also look at what companies have gotten awards for for implementing certain best practices, including even looking at LEED Platinum, LEED Gold, and look at what the reports are and see what they may have done. And finally, going back over here, you can look at parallel processes. It doesn't even have to be a sustainability case study or a sustainability process if it parallels something that you might be doing or could do in sustainability. For example, Southwest Airlines has got a turnaround process that is benchmarked by everybody except for other airlines, because they don't allow them to do it, but they'll follow them around and they'll watch. This is how they do this step by step. And you can take a look at how that is done and see if that can be replicated in your particular business. That is basically the information that I wanted to pass along to you. What I have in the next several slides are some brainstorming that has been done over the last few semesters that are what some other students have come up with as ideas. And I just share them with you to get your juices flowing there. And you can add yours to this as well. So, for example, obviously we have industry standards like USGBC, Energy Star, ASHRAE, specific ones like Green Restaurant Association, Green IT, even some specific ones. There are some museum standards that are out there if you're doing a museum. Other government and department, Florida Department of Energy, remember there's different levels that might have some good information on there, some good best practices, and also some good case studies. SWIFMUD, EPA, Department of Energy, other states have got guidelines on them. Greencode.org is Colorado. The Institute for Local Government is California. Now, take everything that you're reading and analyze it and see if it applies, because obviously there are different regulations, there are different requirements for compliance, and there are different attitudes in different states. But nevertheless, there are also some really good best practices that you can find. And then here I've had some people do churches, and so there's stuff out there on green churches, green Bible. There's a lot of information on green schools, water sense, actually that should go up in government, and actually searching for eco-friendly products. Eco-friendly products can be best practices, to change out all of something that is not so eco-friendly for something that is eco-friendly. That is a best practice. As I mentioned, you can look at theory and textbooks. You can ask your stakeholders. You can consult with the facility manager. We've had kinds of different capstones in all different areas. And so you can see some very unique and special ones, like somebody who worked in a national park, looked at wildlife preserve websites, lead checklist explanations. We have a ton of books in the Sustainability Lab. You're welcome to come there. If I'm not there for some reason, you can ask the front desk to let you in. Do not remove them, please, but you can search. And then there's a printer in there that you can use to make copies, or you can take a picture of it. That's probably faster and easier. Let's see. Certain books that might have some good information. Power of the Plant was a good one for agriculture. And then there's very specialized things. Department of Energy, compressed air best practices was for somebody who was looking at equipment that used compressed air. Let's see, what else do we have here? Interesting case studies, like on UPS drivers turning left. Even Mythbusters had an episode there. I saw a Mike Rowe episode on wind turbines the other day. Look for new or similar businesses and see if they have sustainability reports. This is especially true for mid and large size companies. They all have sustainability reports, and there's a good place for case studies. TECO has got best practices. Actually, I think probably all of them do. We had someone who was doing his on aquaculture, and his aunt in North Carolina had been doing aquaculture for 30 years. She was his best practice. University curricula, blogs, be careful that you check for the credibility of the blog. This particular student mentioned a Green Seal blog, so that was good. We had someone do sustainable surfboards, and there's actually Sustainable Surf is a nonprofit that is trying to get people to do more sustainable surfboards. Let's see, IFAS, anything having to do with gardening, agriculture, whatever. IFAS, University of Florida, has got awesome material. The Sustainable Florida website has winners of best practice awards. So do some others, and you might take a look at that. You've learned TQM, TQEM, TQSM. Those are best practices. If you're doing behavioral changes, you might check your organizational behavior textbook and things on job design. Social media sites, you can actually do a survey and push it out to survey sustainability groups on what their best practices are. LinkedIn, Facebook, things like that. For those of you who are doing it on the Sustainability Lab, you can check other universities that have sustainability labs. How do they organize their lab? You can talk to experts or in the field or read their papers from conferences. Harvard has got best practices. These are ideas that have come up. There's probably about 10 semesters here of ideas. There's print. We've had several students do the print business, and there's interesting stuff on green printing. We had somebody do it on the ice rink that's right across the street from the epicenter. And so they looked at sustainability reports of other ice rinks. Let's see. Social business journals. Here's a couple of good authors: Ray Anderson, Guy Kawasaki. Sustainable Six Sigma, geothermal, green living building challenge. We had one at St. Pete College. Unfortunately, didn't get as far as it could, but there are 11 of them in the country. They certainly will have some best practices. Discussion boards, academic papers that are close to what you're doing. And what you want to do is look at that and look at the list of references because that can give you some good sources. And B Corp has got some good information. So think about this. How about your project? Where will you look for best practices and case studies? You got to have them both. Case studies to go with the best practices that prove that it actually works. So think about that and share those with the class, and I will add them to a slide here. If you have any questions, please contact me, and I look forward to seeing your audits this week. Have a great evening. I'm sure you are all watching the Super Bowl, or at least the commercials. So have fun.